All right, let's talk Texas Longhorns. Obviously, back-to-back seasons, making the college football playoff, need to get over that hump. Arch Manning seems to be a strong candidate to do that. But in order to accomplish the goals, Steve Sarkisian and his staff have to make savvy moves in a new Wild West era of college football, and they're going to do just that. In fact, we got a report that they are planning to do a really strong strategic decision, should help out the future of this Texas Longhorns program. But first, I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, in this modern college football era of the transfer portal and NIL dollars flying around everywhere, the reality is every team is expecting to lose a number of players each and every season, players that you invested in, developed, probably recruited, and gave a lot of time and effort into your program, and then another team's able to poach them off your roster. What happens a lot of times is that young players get their time to shine in a spring game environment, even though they're a backup. A rival program sees how good they are, offer them a lot of NIL money, and he leaves. And now programs, smart programs anyway, are starting to adjust. Chip Brown over at 24/7 Sports had this to say. Let's pull up this report. Athlon Sports put it together. While some schools have already announced their spring football dates, Sarkisian is still thinking about how he wants to structure the Longhorns spring football schedule, including the possibility of no spring games. Sources close to the situation told Horns 24/7 on Tuesday, wrote Brown. Now, why would you cancel the spring game? It's usually a big high media event, right? A lot of attention, a lot of buzz, raise money. It's because you don't want your competition to see your young talent and then immediately after the game call them and offer big bucks to have them pick up and leave and go somewhere else and start right away if they're not starting for Texas. I think this is a really smart strategic decision by Sarkisian and his staff. I highly recommend close all spring practices, cancel the spring game in terms of making it visible. It's not worth the risk. Miles, I know you've got a few thoughts on this, but first, Texas fans in the comment section below, we're talking spring football, we're talking young guys stepping up. Outside of Arch Manning, because he's the obvious one, what new Texas Longhorns starter or projected starter are you most excited to see in the spring? A guy you think who's going to really step up and have a great impact on this Longhorns program? Give us that guy. Again, can't say Arch Manning, it's too easy. Put him in the comment section below. But Miles, what are your thoughts on this latest news out of Austin?
Yeah, Nick, I think this is the classic example of Texas. They're kind of suffering from success a little bit, having back to back to back top five recruiting classes, number three in 2023, number five last year, and this year, a number one recruiting class in the country. There's a lot of talent on this roster and a lot of hidden talent. And if you don't kind of keep your coffers closed, like you said, people are going to come in. This new way that the transfer portal is set up to basically open right after the spring season is very detrimental to these teams that have a lot of hidden talent, hidden players on this roster. And that is definitely Texas. There's so much talent on this roster. If you were to advertise and broadcast the spring game, if you were to have open spring practices, allow people to see it, everyone's going to come running and try to steal these players from Texas. So I think Sarkisian, this is just another really strong move. We've seen very few schools around the country do this or even consider this really. It's a big media event, brings money into, the environment already very early on. I think it's a good thing for a lot of things, but nowadays when you're a school like Texas, that's not your worry. That's nothing that you got money coming out of the wazoo. You can pay anybody and everybody to come pay for this play for the school. So why risk it? Why do that? It doesn't make strategic sense. It doesn't make smart football sense for this team to let people see what you have on this roster. So I agree with you. I think shut down the spring game, close the practices, evaluate your talent, go through the season, and then when the transfer portal's open, then you can start to kind of get the hype going for the program. Let these star players shine, get people excited about the future of what you got. But right now, with the current landscape of college football, how the new transfer portal system is, how NIL is, I don't think it's a smart move. So I think this is just Sarkisian. He's playing now. Maybe they look at other teams. If Georgia decides to have, a spring game, if Alabama has a spring game, you can start to look at their teams and you have the upper hand by keeping your practices sheltered, not allowing people to come in. I think this is a smart strategic move for the team, and I think we're going to start to see more teams do it, but it's glad to be the first mover on something like this. I think this is going to be a big win for Texas down the stretch.
Yeah, spring football is always a challenging situation to manage as a head coach, especially when you got young guys trying to step up. I remember I played college football, right? And I Division One AAFCS, small time. But I remember in my sophomore year, sophomore spring, I had a really good spring. The coaching told me so, right? My own position coach told me I had a really nice spring. The reality was I could look at the depth chart in front of me, and there was a number of fifth year seniors, right? I was not going to leapfrog any of those guys even though I just had a really good spring, was trending in the right direction, and got some good accolades and good feedback. At that point, obviously, I was not in a position to transfer. There was no NIL thing like that for me. And besides, it was a small school, it wasn't going to happen anyway. But I can imagine any one of these kids at Texas or any other program that's just loaded with talent. You talked about their successful recruiting classes. They have a really good spring, and then they look up and they see, let's say it's a quarterback. They see Arch Manning's a starter, and so okay, I'm not going to play for a little while here unless God forbid something happens to Manning. In situations like that, you're a little bummed out as a player because you know you're getting better. You know I don't want to say earned it, but you put yourself in a position, took advantage of it, and you're trending in the right direction. The coaches recognize it, the team recognizes it, you do, and then you sit on the bench all regular season long. With that staring you right in the face, a lot of these players are going to be totally susceptible to, I think, predatory calls from competition, from competing coaches say, hey, listen, I know you had a great spring. We all saw you. The reality is, though, you're not going to beat out Arch Manning or whoever. Why don't you come here and you'll have a chance to start? In fact, you will start right away. Whether that's true or not, we know all these coaches lie. They just do. It's the reality. So this kid had a really great spring. He's trending in the right direction, has a good relationship with the coaching staff. He's frustrated because he's not going to start. He listens to a predatory coach. He packs his bag, leaves, changing environment. Maybe doesn't go into his game very well, doesn't evolve as a player. His career kind of fizzles out. And of course, then the team that had the player, like Texas in this hypothetical, they lose a quality depth piece and maybe a future contributor. I think Steve Sarkisian recognizes the threat both to his program and to the players. Nick Saban was really good at this too, who of course Sark learned under. Saban always made moves that somehow it always seemed to work out this way that were great for the program, but also good for the players. I think this is good for the players. If you have a great spring, that means you're in a great scheme for you, you're in a great staff for you, you're in a great place for you. Why would you leave? Right. And I know getting buried behind the depth chart sucks. I know it. I've lived it personally. It sucks. But the reality is, a lot of these guys, if you're in Texas with the elite level talent you have, you're going to have a chance to play and win championships. Going to another program, going to Texas Tech because you can start right away, doesn't get you anything. The reality is, though, Texas Tech, not picking on them, but just to be totally honest here, will be predatory if they see a player they like doing good things. Sarkisian avoiding that threat, making a smart move here. Once again, not just for his program, but for the players as well. There's very few coaches that do this. I think this is another example why Texas is already on top of the SEC. In the future will continue to remain bright in Austin with Sark in charge.